Recorded. Welcome everybody to T3. Good to see your faces. We are excited to have our guest speaker presenter extraordinaire, Miss Kate Harris, today. And we have asked her to present, and we'll have a follow-up session next month where Tu Nguyen will be presenting on Tu Nguyen. And we've asked them to share because we love doing data-driven PD in South Dakota, and we have the opportunity to see we have room to grow as a state with our measurable skill gains for ESL students, and like to share those promising best practices that we have statewide for the benefit of all. And our data shows that Teacher Kate and Teacher 2 are having really strong measurable skill gains with beginning level ESL students. And they have agreed to share some thoughts from the space of the classroom. And then at the end of Kate sharing her classroom highlights and approaches today, we'll have some time for small group discussion and whole group debriefing on the topics at hand. So without further ado, welcome everyone. Thank you for showing up, and a round of applause. And thank you to Kate for sharing today.
Okay, hi, can everyone hear me okay? Okay, I'm just gonna say yes. So hi, I think I know all of you guys, but if you don't know me, my name is Kate Harris. I work here at LSS Center for New Americans. And I'm gonna teach you today a little bit about some of the things I do in my beginning level speaking class. So give me one moment, please, and I'm gonna open up my PowerPoint. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so let me start by giving you guys a little bit of background context here today. I teach what is our oral 1 level class, which is the lowest level of speaking class offered here at LSS. On Best Plus 3.0, it's around a score of 600 to 680, or on the old score, which I am much more familiar with, it's 88 to 400. So we could get students who could say some sentences, some words, and we can also get students in this class who can't say much more than hello. So it is a little bit of a range, but we do see some different mixed skills in this. Many of our students are SLIFE, students with limited or interrupted formal education, and non-SLIFE. Is everyone familiar with the term SLIFE? Yes, no? Okay, no? Okay, I'll just really quickly. SLIFE stands for Students with Limited or Interrupted Formal Education. Essentially, these are people who did not get to complete their education in their countries. Maybe they had to leave because of war or something else going on for whatever reason. They didn't finish their education, or they had no formal education in their country. Many SLIFE students are not literate in their first language or any other language. So we have a mix in this class of students who are SLIFE learners and then non-SLIFE learners. So I guess you would call that maybe more of a traditional learner. Additionally, many of the students we have in these classes are refugees and asylees. Of course, that impacts the things they've been through, impact how they view learning, how they could act in a classroom. Trauma does change the brain and affects learning a lot. So it is something to keep in mind when working with these students. So one of the big things I do in my class is routine, and scripts. The script, as I define it, is a catchphrase or a saying frequently repeated, or high frequency teacher talk. So we'll give you some examples of those in a minute. But to talk about why I do these things, the big reason is predictability and structure, especially with those students who have experienced trauma. Predictability structure is very, very important. It creates a sense of safety for the students and an expectation of to know what's coming. It's also good because routines, review core vocabulary and concepts. I'm going to walk you through in a few minutes my calendar routine, which is a daily routine in my oral 1 class. That goes over really commonly used vocabulary like days of the week, months, numbers, and also practice asking and answering questions. So it's really good review. It allows a grace period for latecomers. Wish my students all got here on time, but unfortunately they can't all do that for various reasons. So by starting off with this calendar routine every day, it allows that grace for them to come in if they are not able to get on time. This is really helpful because when you have a student who comes in after you've already done the introduction to the lesson or explained things, you have to go back and re-explain. Takes a lot of time. So this is able to save some time, even if they are coming in halfway through the calendar routine, they know what to expect because we do this every day. And of course, it's also a warm up before diving into the main lesson. Students get here, they're still getting adjusted into class time, opening their bags, getting their books out, talking to their friends. This is how we kind of transition from, okay, we're going from outside time to now it's class time. And opportunities for student leadership. My calendar routine in particular is always, always student led. So you will see how that works in just a few minutes. But going back to scripts, as I said, high frequency teacher talk, things I say a lot. I'll give you a few examples. I always begin my class after I say, good morning, how are you? I tell students we need 4 things, and I always hold up with my hands the number 4. We need our white book, yellow book, name, pencil. The white and yellow books are our 2 packets. I simplify the word packet to book in a level 1 class just to prevent confusion. The white book is the packet that changes every month. They get a new packet every month. The yellow book is the packet for all seasons, so to speak. They use it year long, and it has things that we go over frequently, like personal information, numbers, things to that extent. It's called the yellow book because it has a yellow cover. The name is a name tag. It's just a folded index card with their name on it, written in Sharpie so I can see it from across the room, and a pencil, self-explanatory. Doing this transition also helps as that warm-up process for them to know, okay, I'm coming here, I'm getting out these papers, I know what to do. When we go into the calendar routine, I always ask for a teacher to lead the calendar routine. I will hold out my dry erase marker and I'll say, who is my teacher? And we will wait until somebody is brave and volunteers to be the teacher. After the teacher is finished leading the routine, we all clap and cheer for them. I'll say, for example, Teacher Laura, woo! Or Teacher Joe, woo! Be a little silly with that. When I am giving directions, I'll always say something like, hold up the number 2, 2 students talking, 1 student, da 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 da, student 2, da 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 da. Whatever the question answer I'm trying to model is. Jokes are also scripts. I always teach my students we have a lot of fun when we practice what's today. They know to answer today is blah, blah, blah. Of course, when they practice in their pairs, they don't say blah, blah, blah. But when we're modeling it and that question answer format, there's a lot of blah, blah, blahs. Many times I want them to practice their memory with something. So I'll give students a piece of paper with only pictures to jog about things we've talked about to jog their memory. And I'll say, students, no writing, no pencil. And I will physically throw my pencil on the ground in a dramatic fashion, just to illustrate my point. Gestures and TPR TPR, total physical response, very much part of my scripts as well. I talk with my hands. If I'm trying to teach the word today, I usually point down with my fingers. Yesterday, I'll kind of gesture backwards, tomorrow forwards. 2 students talking. Students show me, I'll have my hand out and I'll be pointing, or I'll say no looking and I'll cover my eyes. Just things like that to really illustrate my points. Oop. There we go. All right, so this is an example of how I do the calendar routine. What I would do is I would ask a student who is my teacher, as I said, I would hold out the pen to them. They would come up to the board and we would all clap and cheer for them. That student will then ask the question, what is today? All the students would repeat, let's say in this example, let's say today is Tuesday, July 8th. They would say together, today is Tuesday, July 8th, 2025. While the student teacher and the other students are talking, the student teacher will underline as it's done here. He or she will underline Tuesday, and 8 and July and 2025. That process will repeat with what was yesterday and what is tomorrow. The student teacher will be asking the questions and the other students will be answering them. And then everybody again claps and cheers for our student teacher. So after the student has modeled this, the student sits down, we clap and cheer for them, and then I repeat it. I am the teacher. I ask them again. We say the real name. What is today? What is yesterday? What is tomorrow? With no blah, blah, blahs. And we talk about what it is just so they can get that practice. Again, getting the number pronounced properly, the month pronounced properly, and the days of the week pronounced properly. It gets especially hard with the numbers when we get into those teen versus T differentiation, 13 versus 30, and things like that, but we work on it. After I've modeled that with them, I'll give my instructions. I'll do my 2 students talking, 1 student, what is today? Student 2, today is blah, 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 blah. The students always do the blah, blah, blah back with me because they enjoy it. And it's fun just to remind us of the instructions. This happens every day. They know what to expect, but we repeat it every day so they can keep hearing and keep practicing those questions. And of course, we always have newcomers coming into the class, so it's good for them to hear it as well. Another routine I do with our calendar is after we finish, oh, I'm sorry, and I don't think I said this, after I model it, then the students go into their pairs and do this by themselves. They practice asking and answering their questions in pairs. What is today? What was yesterday? What is tomorrow? One student asks, the other student will answer, and then we switch roles. Usually takes about 5 minutes or so. I walk around, listen, monitor, help as needed, make sure everyone has their papers, everything they need. If I have a volunteer in the class that day, they will also help. After we're finished with the date, we go on to weather. I ask them, how's the weather? I point outside and we'll talk about it. They'll say sunny, cloudy, rainy. And then we will physically on our calendars draw a sun, a cloud, raindrops. Not a perfect drawing. This is of course not art class, but we do that for to really help those low-level students who maybe writing the word rainy is not going to help them. But if they have a physical representation of a sun, a cloud, it's useful. And then we go to Google and we look up what the temperature is. I use the Fahrenheit, not the Celsius. If there's very confused faces, I will say, okay, America 80 degrees, your country, whatever it is in Celsius. I'm not sure off the top of my head. But we will just write down the Fahrenheit temperature. They write it down and then I model the question again. How's the weather? How's the weather? And the students practice giving their answer. So for example, if I ask, I'll have you guys be my students. Students, today is Wednesday, July 9. How's the weather?
Sunny.
July 9?
It's cloudy and 81 degrees.
Oh, July 9.
That's okay.
See, there you go, Kate.
There you go. No
I'm looking
problem. Yeah,
outside.
you got it. It's cloudy, 89 degrees. I also realize that we're dealing with November weather and I am very jealously looking at these 80s, 87 degrees. But that is how it works, whatever the month is. It gets interesting for evening classes because it's dark when they come. So it's like, how do we know the weather? And then we talk about the word clear, which is very interesting. And then I get to draw a little crescent moon that looks like a banana and we all laugh. So like I said, we have fun with it. I have students who can do beautiful suns and moons and teacher Kate, not so much, but that's not the point. So we'll talk about that. And then at the end of the week, our last week of class, oh, I messed this up a little bit. I'm sorry. We have daytime class Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So I think this should actually be shifted one day down. But at the end of the week, I'll ask some questions, whole class. I'll ask how many days? How many days of class? 3 days. They'll answer 3 days. I'll ask how many days are sunny? How many days are cloudy? How many days are rainy? What days? So my students, how many days are sunny?
2.
Thank you. How many days are cloudy?
1.
Good. How many days are rainy?
5. 0.
None.
Not 5. Yeah, 0. You got it. We do teach the word 0 as well, because many students will just say, no, no. This one, we want to use the word 0. And then I'll ask what days. So I say, how many days sunny? 2. What days? Here, Tuesday and Thursday. Then we talk temperature. What is the hottest, biggest, highest temperature? I need to be more consistent about choosing one word. I usually say biggest because that's the easiest in this class. But I do sometimes shift to hottest or highest. But yes, what is the biggest? And I talk with my hands here. Biggest, smallest, or sometimes I say number 1 hot or number 1 cold. So students, what is the biggest temperature this week?
87 degrees.
Thank you. And what is the smallest temperature?
80.
Thank you. You got it. We'll move on to something else, but guys, really quickly, are there any questions right now about my calendar routines, either the day of the week or the weather? Okay, just checking my time. Okay, we're good. All right, so now we get into the fun part. The TH sound, the TH sound. We love to be fun with this. I jokingly have always described it as my white whale because gosh, it is hard. So why are some sounds like TH so hard? They're hard because they don't exist in lots of languages. And even in languages that I know that the students speak where I know they exist, students still struggle with it. It's the pushing of the air, the placement of the tongue, it's hard. In this place, when they're having issues, whoop, come on. Excuse me, PowerPoint's being difficult. Oh, too far. In these experiences where they're having problems with the TH, a lot of times they'll say t or th because they can't make that th sound. So when we do our calendar routine, Thursday is almost always Thursday or Thursday. And sometimes, a lot of times they forget the R too because they're confusing it with Tuesday. So they're saying, what's today? Tuesday. What is tomorrow? Tuesday. So then we have to talk a little bit about getting that R in there. So literally, when they make the T and the F, it's because they cannot hear the difference. Their ears have not grown accustomed to that yet. And so they really, really need all that practice and all that listening so they can start to hear it. So one thing I do when we're working in the calendar is I'll ask them Tuesday, Thursday. Well, I'll say it a bunch of times, they'll repeat back to me. And then on the calendar, I'll write a number 1 above the Tuesday, and I'll write a number 2 above the Thursday. And I'll say something to the effect of, students, listen, no talk. Teacher talk and students listen. Teacher talks Tuesday, show me 1 finger. And then I'll say, teacher talks Thursday, show me 2. I will choose one of those 2 days. I'll say it very clearly and very slowly. They hear me say Tuesday, they put up 1 finger. They hear me say Thursday, they put up 2 fingers. It's a really nice listening differentiation. And I use it not just for the calendar, but when we do number practice. There's a lot of tricky things when we get into teen versus D, 13 versus 30, 14 versus 40. So we do that activity as well when we get there. They hear a teen number, 1 finger. They hear a D number, 2 fingers. Something else that we do in class, I break up the word in the parts, Thursday, and yes, I do draw these silly emoji faces on the board because having a picture representation can really help. I'll draw a smiley face with a tongue sticking out. I'll draw a little angry face for the and I will, again, very much over exaggerate that sound. I will growl, I will hold up my hands like in I guess like a bear or something like that. We make it silly. We don't do this because we're trying to insult the students. We're doing this so they can really hear that sound. We're over exaggerating, and we're doing it because pronunciation is stressful. I think if we can add something fun, I think it makes it good. And we are not pointing fun at the students. We are pointing fun at the angry dog sounds I see Alex saying. We're not doing it to make fun of the students. We're doing it to make fun of the language in a way and its difficulties because English is tricky and we want to be able to have fun with it. So if we can just, I mean, we've done this before and students just break down into giggles, and I love that. I love it. I want them to feel that because that's going to take that stress off of them. So we do that for Tuesday in the TH, and we do a similar thing for Tuesday. And I will literally do like a puckered mouth, kissy fish face, fish face to really enunciate. We want those pursed lips when we do the Tuesday. And I will draw a silly emoji on the board with that picture. So one thing I also want to say, this is the but. Importance of intelligibility. I have been pushing the TH in my class for a long time. Last month, I went to a webinar given by Suzanne Gilchrist McCurdy, given by Literacy Minnesota. And she was talking about pronunciation for intelligibility. And she showed us this great chart. She took this chart from this book at the bottom, Phonics and the Teaching of Pronunciation. Basically, what this chart is doing is it's showing how much of a load the letter or sound in question has to make the word understood. So if we look here, K versus H, 100%. That K versus H is doing 100% of the load carrying to make the word understandable. Now that makes sense. To give you an example, my name is Kate. If a student called me Teacher Hate instead of Teacher Kate, that's going to create confusion. Or down here, P and B, 98%. If a student is trying to say pat, but they say bat, that is 98%. 98% if they say it wrong will be confusing. It's 2% intelligible if they say it wrong. So then where do we get in here with these common mistakes like saying instead of th or th instead of th? That is down here. It's actually not that high of a of an intelligible load. Here, if you say T instead of TH, 18%. So 18 minus 100 means 82% understandable. If they say Thursday instead of Thursday, 82% of the time they'll be understood. Same thing here, F instead of the th, 85% of the time they'll be understood because of the cognitive load. Does that mean we don't work on that TH? Of course not. We definitely work on that TH. But we also don't, it's not life and death if they don't get it. In Oral 1, we really choose our battles of what we need to know to get those basics out without giving too much input and making it overwhelming and confusing. But to give you another example, this happened in my class recently. Over here, NL. I was teaching weather words. I was teaching the word snowy, snowy. And I had a student who kept mispronouncing it as slowly. Oh, no, not slowly, slowy, slowy. That is 61%, which means that's only 39% understandable. If I hear a student saying weather slowly, or see, and I keep saying myself because I want to say the word slow. I think if you hear a student say slowy, you think they're trying to say slowly, but they're not. This student in question was trying to say snowy. She's only 39% understood. So we really got to work on that pronunciation. The ones here are those higher cognitive loads. So when they're mispronouncing those are the ones that need most focus. Down here, down here, lower focus. Sorry, I just saw a question in the comments, frequency of thing. Yeah, that's true. Very true, John. Yes, I'm not saying I'm not going to teach TH. It is my white whale after all. But I think in the past I was giving it way too much, more load than it deserved. So it will always be taught, but maybe just a little bit less. So this is a really nice chart, guys. And if you ever have questions about that, I really recommend this. So all that being said, pick your battles. Focus on what's important, relevant, and doable for your students. So those lower priority pronunciations like the TH versus the T and the TH versus the F absolutely can be done at higher levels or be done if the student specifically asks for it. But if I'm saying TH, 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 and they're just not getting it, I gotta let it go. So as I was saying, TH practice is never, ever, ever gonna die. I am always gonna be sticking my tongue out like a crazy person. But I am planning on working on it on a shorter fixed amount of time when I do it in oral one. Okay. Now moving on to another routine, numbers. We spend a lot of time talking about numbers in my class. We do, especially getting in, as I was speaking earlier, to these teen and D numbers. This page is from the quote unquote yellow book. It's a bingo, but we don't really play it like bingo. What I do is after we've studied these, I'll ask the students to open this page and I'll do my no writing, throw my pencil on the ground, and I'll have them just with their finger show me. They have to listen to me say one of the numbers and point to it on their paper. So I'll say, students, show me 19, show me 11, show me 90. And I will really, really, really over enunciate it. Like I said, no writing. If I see the students try to write it in their language or try to write it out, I'll say, da, 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 da. No writing, please. After I've done this and modeled this, a lot of times when we do this activity, I'll say, I need a teacher. Who is my teacher? Just like I did with the calendar. Then a student will come up and they'll do the same. They will do exactly what I did. Students, show me 30, show me 13, show me 50. And that student will be my co-teacher, and he or she will walk around and help me make sure the students are pointing to the right number on the paper. What if the student who is the teacher has a problem, doesn't say it clearly, doesn't say it right? We train the students to say, teacher or student, Joe, blah, 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 please repeat. We teach them that because that is a very, very important phrase in English. Anytime they don't hear, they don't understand, they can always ask for repetition. And of course, a lot of times the student teacher will be nervous and he'll say it either too quickly or he'll say it in a soft voice, and we'll model that, teacher, please repeat, and make sure they get it. If it's really not well understood, I will intervene, but I try as much as possible to let the student teacher take the lead. Okay. Another thing we do frequently is our choral practice. Laura and Diana both have offices next to the room I teach this class in the morning and the evening, and you will always hear the students saying after me, we do so much choral practice. It's like a concert. What choral practice is for us is first we introduce a word or a question one at a time, and then repeat, repeat, repeat. Question frames come in useful here. So what I do here is, in this example, the question is, what do you do at a celebration? We would practice choral rep that question many, many times. Then I would point to this first picture and we would practice, I dance. They should be able to get what it is from this picture, but if not, I'll do my silly little chicken dance or whatever it is to really hone the point. Then we will practice again. I dance, I dance, I dance, I dance. We'll say it together several times. I like to walk around when we're doing this. So if I'm hearing someone having a pronunciation issue, I can listen closely for it. For example, when we did this particular activity about what we do at celebrations, I thought the students were going to struggle with the word fireworks. Fireworks was fine, but gift was tricky. I think that FT together, that's a hard sound. T, I find a hard T is also hard because you got to push that air and then stop it. So that can be a little tricky. So we definitely hit that up a lot. But another thing is if they forget an S where it's needed, if I'm working specifically on a plurals and they're forgetting that S, pencils, I'll hiss at them like a snake, really, just to make sure they get that sound. So not too much input, 1 to 3 questions, 4 to 8 vocabulary words at a time. How I would do this with 1 question and 8 words is we would do the first half. I would do the question and then those 4, and then I'd let them pair practice it a little bit. One student would ask, what do you do at a celebration? The other would say, I dance. Then they switch. What do you do at a celebration? I eat. Then they switch. Just doing these 4, dance, eat cake, and drink. Do that. I walk around, listen, help with any pronunciation, and then we review them. Then we go back and we do another 4. So they have all 8 here. Question sentence frames are a must. So here we have our question and the sentence frame here. It's a very simple sentence, just a pronoun and a verb, except for here games and most of them are pronouns and verbs, I should say. We have a few objects in here, but it's simple. We like it oral one when they can say a complete sentence. Sometimes that's not going to happen. Sometimes eat, that's what they're going to get, and that's great. We're going to talk about later different expectations for different students based on ability. Then what we do to make this fun is I'll have the students number these pictures. So dance is number 1, eat 2, eat cake number 3, and I'll give them a dice to roll. And one student will roll the dice and ask the question, and the other student will answer it. I have regular 6-sided dice, and then I have 8-sided dice. Maximum input I would do would be 12, in which case I would give them 2 regular 6-sided dice. And I like to do that when they've had a lot of practice with it because they get those 12. Also, it's integrated numeracy. They're doing that math, adding those 2 numbers together, the 6 and the 6 to make the 12. So I really like to do that. And then challenges. If we had been working on this page, depending on how fast they're getting it, if it's the last day of the week, I'll say something like, students, this weekend, homework, your house, practice. Monday, this page, no looking. And I'll show them the picture and they'll have to ask and answer the question from memory. I really like doing that, not to be mean, not because I like giving tests, but because in the real world, you don't have a paper in front of you when you're trying to speak with someone. You just got to pull the words out. And it doesn't have to be perfect. We don't expect perfection. If you can get that sort of basic out, even when they're doing the asking and answering, if they don't do it word for word, what you do, celebration. Or if they forget celebration and they say party, that's fine. Oral 1, we're trying to get the basics here. Absolutely, if we can get the full sentence and the full answer, wonderful. Not always possible though. And of course, repeat, 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 repeat. You are going to get bored of this long before they do. We have been working on daily routines in my level 1 for the past 3 or 4 weeks, and we are done, and I am extremely grateful because I am bored. The students are not bored though, so that's what's important. Method to the madness. Why do we do all these crazy things? LSS created a curriculum content calendar, which rotates the state competencies, IELCE topics, and IET units while focusing on listening and writing ELP standards. We have every month focusing on a different topic based on these different things. So for example, we are in November right now. What are we doing? In November, transitional skills, that's our IET unit. So that can cover lots of different things. We've been working on that routine. It was in the October packet, but we also moved it this month because talking about routines and time, very important transitional skills. Workplace vocabulary, transitional skill. And then skills that they have. We just started talking about what can you do? I can dance, I can cook, I can speak Spanish. All these different things that they can use, not just in English, but in a future career or an academic setting. What's really nice about the way we do this at LSS is help students review and learn content in different ways. Every class, whether it's my level 1 speaking class, all the way up to the level 5 reading class, which is our highest class, is doing the same topic. Our level 5 is doing transitional skills as well. It's just a little bit different. We're more talking about job applications and benefits at work and understanding time cards and timesheets. That's way too low for oral 1, or excuse me, way too high for oral 1, but it still is on that same unit. So they're getting the same content, just different ways, both orally and in written word, which is really great. Review competency lists. We always, when creating the content in our packets, we always check the comp lists. We think of students, their needs, and their cultures. What do they need to know to be able to communicate with English speakers? Put yourself in their shoes. If I were them, what would I need and why? We'd focus on practical skills here, how to talk to people at work, how to have a conversation with a cashier at the shop, how to say good morning, please and thank you, and same in the written classes. How do you read your child's report card? How do you read a bus map? What do you need to know to get around and move in the country? What can I reasonably expect them to do after practice and review? Some students at those higher levels are going to be able to say that full question and full answer sentence. Some are just going to get 1 or 2 words. Some are going to have great memory and be able to do on that last page all 8 of those celebrations. Some are only going to get 1 or 2. You have to know your students and know who you can expect to do what. And then what's culturally appropriate for their cultures and American cultures. And if they're different, how can we reconcile it in a respectful way? It was very deliberate in that last one where I did the picture of I chose kids drinking juice for a reason. I didn't want to put pictures of adults drinking beer or champagne because I didn't want to necessarily upset anyone. Now, I definitely had some young men in my class who made jokes about that. They said, I drink beer at a party. That's fine. That's your culture. I respect that. You're having fun, you're making a joke. That's fine. But I specifically chose the kids drinking juice just to make it more respectful. I see a question. Do you explicitly address the low volume of the student's voice? I try. One of my silly scripts is when I take attendance. I say, students, listen. I say your name, and then I go, big voice. And I'm very ridiculous and overdramatic because I want them to really not screaming at me, but that whispering. I want them to do that active listening, the active listening for their name, and then saying here or yes. Oops, excuse me, too far, here or yes. If we're doing something where they're the teacher and nobody can hear them, then I'll do that again. I'll say, Teacher Joe, big voice. Sometimes it has to be said a lot. They get shy, they get nervous. They're just not confident in themselves. But as much as I can, if it's way too low and nobody can understand it, then yes, I'll address it. It's generally not too much of a problem when they're working in pairs. Okay. Next thing, what's my time? Sorry. Being a warm demander. I think it was a few months ago, we were listening to a presentation from Christine Kelly from Atlas, and she was talking about the role of a teacher as being a warm demander. You want to be warm, you want to be friendly, of course, but you need to have expectations for your students. If there's no expectations, then that progress will not be made. So how can you have those expectations without coming across as a jerk? That's where being a warm demander is. One way to do it is giving appropriate challenges. This week in your house practice, Monday no looking. I would ask the students to do that. Again, knowing not all are going to be able to do it. Some are going to be able to get one or two words or a phrase, but for the non-SLIFE students, they really can, if they sit down and work at it, they're able to get most of those. For example, the page I just showed you about celebrations, if we've been practicing it for a week and a half, 2 weeks, and I say on Monday, we're going to do this from memory, most of those students can do half or more. Obviously, some of the expectations are lower for SLIFEs. SLIFE students, they can't really study at home if they don't have anyone to study with. They know the pictures, but if they can't practice reading them, that can be hard. So there is different expectations for the students based on ability. Yes, like I said, different challenges based on current abilities. So that high level student, maybe they could do all 8 of those things you do at a celebration. A low level, maybe half or less. I know the students, so I know what to expect, and I know what is a reasonable expectation for student A versus student B. And then, of course, hold them accountable to the challenges. If I say Monday memory, we are doing Monday memory. Of course, we'll review it together as a whole class with their papers written down if they like to look, if they have that literacy available to them. But then I'll say papers closed, we're going to do this no looking. And then they give me this face. But we have fun with it, and we always clap and cheer for them when they do get it. And then we tell the students why we're doing this. I will tell them explicitly, students, you talk to cashier, you have a paper? No paper. You use your brain, use your memory. That's why we do this, because real world English, we're not reading off a paper. Oops, too far. Nope. A little trigger happy today with my PowerPoint. Last thing before we do some discussion talk is just some general advice I have. This is for all levels. I've noticed it specifically in one, but it works for all. Model being a learner. Demonstrate palpable joy and interest when you learn something new. Share your learning with your students. I love it, and I know you guys do when your students teach you something new, whether it's a word in your language or not in this class, but my very, very high level class. My students are doing a research project right now about famous people in history, and they've been telling me things they've been learning that, I know who this person is, but I didn't know this thing or that thing about him. Or her. So that's been really interesting. Be warm and personable. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, look silly. And this will encourage learners to do the same. The ridiculous white whale that we do with our TH is to be silly. And I don't mind making myself look like a fool if it makes them feel more comfortable and it helps them have fun. We want to have fun with English. It is necessary, but it doesn't have to be such a drag all the time. Judiciously simplify vocabulary. I say book instead of packet. I say pen instead of marker. When we get to those higher levels, we can get into some of those more complicated words, but at the lower level, we really want to keep it reasonable. I don't think certain words that cannot be taken down, simplified, we don't, but when it's possible, we like to do it. Test their memory. As I've already mentioned, real life, you don't have a packet with you. You got to remember it. And then the big thing we do, ask them to repeat back to you. If I say students, white book, page 7. What number? 7. Yellow book? No, white. Have them say it back to you to make sure they're listening. We were practicing time and we were doing what time do you, blah, 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 question, answer. The student would answer with whatever time they did the activity. I sleep at 10, I eat breakfast at 5. And then I would ask the students, what time did he say? 5, to make sure they're listening. Okay, that is what I have for you right now. I think, Miss Laura, it's time for us to do discussion questions. Is that right?
Yes, yes, it is. Thank you so
Okay.
much, Kate.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
I'll put them back up.
no problem. Thanks for doing that. Does anyone have comments or questions for Kate before we go into our discussion?
I don't have a comment for Kate, but I have a comment about Kate's class. In the evenings, Tuesdays and Thursday evenings, I enroll in test students in the room right next to Kate's class, Kate's Oral 1 class, and I get the opportunity to hear many of the things that she's described. And I really like how Kate so often does like games and manipulatives in her Oral 1 class. When I listen or walk by to find students, they're very often, not just sitting there listening to the teacher or whatever. Their heads down, looking at their partner, looking at the cards or whatever, rolling the dice, as Kate has described. So I think it's good to have that kind of sort of, physical activity in the class. I think the students appreciate that too. So I think there's a fair amount of time dedicated to those activities.
Thanks, Amy. I can hear you, but not through the computer, Silka. Okay. Do you want me to be your repeater, Silka? Okay. Silka's having a technology issue. Oh, I saw something in the chat box. How good are your MSG rates? They're pretty good. I'd say of all our oral levels, I think Laura, you could speak for this too, I think. But I think oral 1 consistently has the almost always consistently has the highest in the school. Is that right, Laura, Amy?
Mm. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Consistently, our highest measurable skill games come from the ESL level 1 and level 2 classrooms. And when we look at the statewide aggregate data, the level 1, ESL level 1 and 2 typically are high in our program as compared with statewide aggregate. So just looking at that data from the statewide view, we wanted to dig in and do a little bit more research about what might we learn from what's working well in those classrooms that could apply to other levels of instruction. Thank you. right. So we have just a few minutes left, and we could do small group or we could do whole group discussion around these questions, and you can see them in front of you. I did invite Kate and her successor, which will be onto next month, to talk about the warm demander persona and that research that was shared with us by Christine Kelly, and before her, Betsy Parrish has spoken to that in her research about how that persona shows up in our classrooms and the research-based impact that it has. Question for your discussion is, how does that persona show up in your own classrooms? And if it helps to recall some of the things that Kate shared in her presentation, and I was able to listen to it throughout what she shared today as well. It's really interesting that when Christine Kelly showed us, it was in a quadrant format where warm demander has that combination of functions in the classroom that yield the most impact in student gains. So where do you see that in your own teaching? And can you reflect a little bit on what does that mean? Or do you have questions about it? I appreciate what Amy shared about overhearing the instruction and the activities that are done that are hands-on. And Kate is very consistent. That's something I really appreciate about you, Kate, is your consistency in the routines that you do, and your persona is very consistent. When Kate presents to us today and says, big voice, this is trademark. What she has showed us in this presentation is exactly how she shows up in the classroom every day. And she gives the students a high expectation. You heard her talk about no pencil. And if she monitors and she sees if they're trying to write it in their language, that's not the focus of this activity. She is a warm demander in that moment in the way that she approaches it and brings guidance, because she's right on it. She gives them the feedback right away that that's not what they are supposed to be doing. And she adds humor. So that's the warmth part, is she kind of jokes about it, but she's also demanding the results that are in the best interest of the student. She's honoring the sponge nature of the students. We don't come to our ESL classes for no reason, or because we're kind of laid back and relaxed about this. Our students come with sometimes 2 to 4 hours of sleep. They just got off a 10-hour shift. They are here to learn, and they're here to learn now. So teachers like Kate meet that expectation, meet the moment by bringing warm demander as a persona, knowing that the students are ready to be a sponge and soak up as much as they possibly can. And they may be with us as an intermittent learner for only 1 year, or they could be with us only 3 months before they stop out and then come into a heavier work schedule and aren't able to come. So they're ready to learn. And Kate alleviates that stress. She talked about the stress that people can go through learning pronunciation, and how do we make it lighthearted and fun and humorous so that we can reduce the affective filter that would prohibit the progress of learning. So those are a few examples of how I see that happen in Kate's classroom in response to number 1. Does anyone else have thoughts about that? Do you feel yourself or see yourself stepping into class with a high bar for the students and really pushing them to excel, but also being that cheerleader that has warmth?
Go ahead.
That warm demander concept is kind of interesting. You know, being a male, older male, and having worked in the criminal justice system for a number of years, besides my ESL background, it takes a little time to build some trust with the students, obviously. And I have a wonderful teacher's aide, and we've kind of developed a little bit of a banter back and forth, and self-deprecating to me a little bit once in a while, and to make the students feel a little more comfortable with me, I guess. And so that warm demander is a oops, sorry, is an interesting point. You have to kind of, you can't, if ever you kind of get kind of abrupt with them, they're all quiet for the rest of the class. So you got to kind of keep that kind of light tone, I guess. So I don't know, but
I also use self-deprecation a lot, whether I'm, I was making fun of myself for how late I went to bed when we were talking about times the other night, or students saying, I got up at 5, I got up at 2, I got up at 6. Teacher, 9:30 students. It helps.
For the sake of the recording, we can share that we had a comment from Diana in the chat. She said, my students love to have the practice time with their peers. And this brings conversation about maybe the correct pronunciation or word order as they listen to others who have higher or lower English. Okay. So they love having that practice time with peers. Good.
I wanted to say how much I appreciate the notion of high expectations for our learners and making the most of their time. Whether that's intermittent or, with great intensity and duration, for a short, intermediate, or over the course of many, many months or years. I do think too, this is one of the special areas of adult ed which really allow for each teacher's disposition, classroom dynamic, and personal and professional interests to intersect. And you know Amy's comment about Kate's usage of manipulatives and realia, and I think there's now a fresher term for contextualized based manipulatives, but I mean, I think that's what keeps your students returning, that you're engaged. Um, you do have high expectations and want to make the most of your time and theirs. So kudos.
Thanks.
How about question two? Thank you for everybody for your comments, and thanks, John, for adding your thoughts. Yes, in a safe, nurturing environment. Absolutely. High expectations in a safe, nurturing environment. I love seeing that. My administrator and teacher brain, when I get to observe people and ask myself what keeps their students coming back. Because when we look at our programmatic data and see which classes we retain students with the most rigorously, that's a question that I've pondered over the years. Is our students have a lot of demands and there is a norm of intermittent learning, but it's really interesting to ask yourself, when you have students that keep coming back, they love being in your classroom or your online class, what is it that you're bringing to them that meets their needs? I see the warm demander show up in that way too. The students come back for that. The question number two is, what do you think Kate does that increases measurable skill gains for beginners based on what you heard today?
The repetition and the routine are very important at all levels, but especially level 1.
Thanks, Debbie. For sure, repetition and routine.
think something else that Kate and I have talked about in the past regarding an intermediate level class that we teach together, but it applies to every level, is we try to get, alternate between whole class practice, maybe small group, maybe pairs, and then go back to whole class, more presentation, and then guided practice, and then independent practice, going through cycles of that. So it's not such a long chunk. Oh, teacher talked for 20 minutes and that, just to keep the brain fresh. Studies show that that's good too, 15 to 20 minutes, and then switch. So I think Kate does a good job of that as well in her class, again, that I hear through the wall in the evening. Group presentation, whole group presentation, class, whatever, although it's interactive, and then pair work or games or activity manipulatives and going back and forth. I think that keeps engagement up a lot, and it's rigorous for the brain, which helps them learn.
So a lot of scaffolding and variety. The pace is pretty, I'm hearing Amy say pace too. We're clipping along from one format to another. It's great. In the chat, Jennifer shared conversation, vocabulary, pronunciation, explicit instruction with review and repetition. Great, Jennifer. Thank you. And in our last couple of minutes, our last question of today is, after today's presentation, what ideas do you have to increase measurable skill gains for your lowest learners at whatever level that would be?
Sorry, John asked a question as well. He asked, do capstone projects at the end of modules? We have done them before, not usually at level 1, but for example, in higher level classes, we did a TSTM unit about event planning, and the capstone for that, and this was a higher level speaking class, would be to present about an event they planned. We're still kind of working on that as well. So the answer, not so much at the low levels, but we definitely see them at the higher levels in my experience.
Laura, I have an addendum to the question. Question number 3 about MSGs and ideas?
Sure.
More of a clarification. It seemed to me, I recollect with Best Plus 2.0, a couple of collocations. There were a couple of sentence introductions or follow-up responses that we almost taught explicitly because we saw them on that Best Plus 2.0. I don't know if anyone can help me with those, but are there similar constructs with Best Plus 3.0 that you've noticed?
It's the same. And what about you?
That's one of, yeah, thank you. Okay. And what about you? That has not changed, huh?
Tell me about this picture. And I hear summarizing being a theme too in the 3.0. Something that we're working on. Well, we are at the top of the hour. And thank you for being here. And thank you, Kate, for all the work that you put into that. I loved how you were able to tie in PD, shared PD, and some individual PD that you attended with Susan Gilchrist McCurdy. I really, really appreciate you all joining in this conversation today. And now John says with only a 40 minimum requirement for the pre and post test. Yes, time is of the essence. giving our students quality instruction in an environment that is safe and approachable and warm. We hope gives them the instruction and the environment that they need to make a gain in 40 hours. And fortunately, we do see that happen. And our lower level learners, we're fortunate in our local program to have lower level learners that are very dedicated to their attendance, and they keep showing up. And we know that all of you in this virtual room are the reason for that. You're the reason why they keep showing up. The methods that you use and who you are in the classroom is crucial to the students throughout our state making progress toward their goals. And John said certificates are great too. That is true. We find that particularly with our IET offerings, that having a certificate at the end. We have had students that say, this is the first time I've gotten a certificate for anything, and they're so proud of their achievements. So how we celebrate the students' progress, push them, give them challenging goals, and then celebrate those wins. Good point.
Thanks, everyone. Well done.
Thank you, everyone.
you.
Thank you, Kate.